This episode of Detail Therapy is sponsored by 99 Designs. You guys, I got so excited when 99 Designs reached out to me because they have been so integral in multiple parts of my business. I am a bootstrapping girl and I am always getting things done on my own dime, on my own time. And I really want to work with some of the best that I can. Detail therapy specifically, I went to 99 Designs to have all of that design created. So the logo and the color palette, everything, that was all done with 99 Designs. And I also went there for my book cover. If you're not familiar with Vlog Like a Boss, it's my first book, came out in 2017, and I wanted to use a really great designer, but I needed to self-publish and get it all done on my own dime. So 99 Designs was a perfect place to do that. From graphic designers to videographers to photographers all over the world, go check out the largest creative platform out there, and friends of Detail Therapy get to save $20 on their first design. All you have to do is go to 99designs.com/AMYTV. That's 99designs.com/AMYTV. Get $20 off your first design, and I promise you, if you're digging the look of my stuff, you're gonna dig working with them.
She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author, obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies.
Give me every little detail
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
I am a creator, and I believe we are all human beings are creators. It's that all the outside influence, all the outside noise that, has determined what's good, right? And what is acceptable or what people will pay for is what keeps people from creating.
Good morning, good life, and welcome back to Detail Therapy. You just heard a little bit of my chat with speaker, writer, and coach Brett Kaufman. He also happens to be the CEO of Kaufman Development, which is technically my landlord. I really hope this goes well. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what happened when societal norms played a role in what Brett decided to do with his life, and then how he changed it, how he stayed persistent knocking on banks' doors during a crappy market to get his first massive real estate loan of $30 million, and how he has made philanthropy a focal point of his business today. We have a lot to get into today with Brett, but for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Amy Landino, and I will be your host. I'm a YouTube creator, professional speaker, best-selling author, and entrepreneur. I'm here to help you go after the life that you want. You can find out more details about me at youtube.com/AMYTV. Oh my gosh, can you even believe right now we are almost halfway through season 2 of Detail Therapy? I feel like I started this podcast 5 minutes ago, and also the feedback continues to come in. It pours in, your reviews, your tweets. It's amazing. I really, really appreciate you for letting me know that this project resonates with you. It's been so much fun. Not gonna lie though, I'm kind of getting excited about vacation. I don't know if you've heard, but I am totally taking a vacation this summer. I'm going for a week to Mexico with my family, and then I am going for 3 weeks to Italy with my husband's family. It's going to be a long time, and trust me, when I realized I was taking that much time off, I was like, I should probably start planning all the things that need to happen while I am gone so I can actually take the time and feel like I can really have a break. So it's been a crazy month of May as I'm preparing for such a long time out of the office because, of course, the podcast will still be coming. AMYTV episodes will still be coming as well. And there will still be a lot going on in the Shine Squad, which is the new community that I just started for people who are going after the life that they want and optimize every moment of their day to make it happen. You can find out more details about that at patreon.com/AMYTV. But anyway, it's been insane. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. If I were not looking at light at the end of the tunnel on June 2nd, I would feel a little burnout right now. This is probably why I don't try to create 6 videos a day on a regular basis. And yes, time batching queen over here, calendar blocker extraordinaire. Yeah, I'm making that many videos in a day. So that's what you got to do, right? I show up for you, and you're going to be totally understanding that I'll be lying on a beach while you're watching my videos, right? Isn't that how that works? Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest because I knew that you'd be super happy to hear. A lot of you do tweet me and say, like, Amy, really, like, are you going to take a break at any point in time? Some of us are going on vacation. You should too. And I'm really excited that the family kind of put this together because this is one of those things I don't tend to organize on my own, actually taking time away from the office. I guess part of that is absolutely loving what I do, and other parts of that is workaholism. But the first step is recognizing it, right? I don't want to waste any more time because I think you're going to find this conversation so enlightening, and it's really a pleasure for me because for those people who live in Columbus, you may be familiar with Kaufman Development. But for me, I have gotten to know Brett on a level more than just being the guy that owns my building. And I truly think he is a shining star, extraordinary in the way that he thinks and presents himself in the company that he keeps in his industry. So I really think you're going to find this very interesting. Whether you are into real estate or not, I think that Brett has learned a lot of amazing life lessons that can resonate with a lot of us. So with that, let's get into my chat with my next guest. Today, I'm sitting down with Brett Kaufman. Brett is a speaker, writer, coach, and advisor to founders and startups. Driven by the bigger questions in life, Brett is dedicated to personal transformational work that allows us to live with more mental and physical freedom. He's also the founder and CEO of Kaufman Development. During his 20-year career in real estate, he's developed, leased, and sold over 10,000 homes and developed a variety of commercial, retail, land, and office projects. Since founding the company, Kaufman Development has donated numerous resources to various philanthropic efforts, including BESA, Ohio State University, Hunger Alliance, Ronald McDonald House, and OSU James Cancer. Brett has also been recognized as one of the top 50 leaders in the region for his ability to drive innovation within his organization, impact his employees and the community at large, as well as lead Kaufman Development in a direction that is built to transform. Let's get into my chat with Brett Kaufman. Brett Kaufman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Well, that's kind of a broad question. I could answer a number of different ways. So, I mean, I guess,
however you like.
Like Meta, I don't know that I'm actually in charge of really that, why I'm doing it. I feel like it's kind of happened, beyond my control to some extent. There's then the answer, which is like, well, I started out in banking and then I met this real estate guy and then I got this experience and, that led me to the development part of what I do. But I think ultimately it's really always been about trying to make an impact on the human experience. And, starting the company that I've founded now in the real estate space and everything that I'm doing, all of the work that I'm doing is leading towards how do I actually really optimize human beings and, ultimately kind of heal and optimize.
Okay, so then if that's your why, let's just go back to the beginning. You were in banking and now you're in real estate. You were in real estate in another way. Now you are in this way. So how did you end up in banking? Let me preface this with, you're my landlord. I don't think a lot of people would have interviewed their landlord on their podcast, but I'm running with it. And you're also a way bigger deal than just being my landlord. I always
forget that, by the way.
I know. I'm like, oh God, did I pay my rent this month?
Yeah, and I'm always like, oh, is she happy? Like, are we doing a good job?
You're doing a great job, okay, and we can talk more about that. Okay. But I see a lot in your journey as we've gotten to know each other a little bit. We just had coffee recently. We were on a board together at one point in time, and we were always kind of like, there's something here. Let's talk more. And the more that I did find the opportunities to do that, it just seems like you have been down a similar journey. You get a lot of great press right now. Like, Kaufman is a big deal here in Columbus. But for the people that don't know Columbus and don't know Kaufman, I think it's more interesting that you've gotten to this point in your career, but you've had kind of an interestingly similar trajectory in that you may have started in a career that wasn't your forever. And then you got into the industry and that still wasn't a right fit. So back to what I was saying before, like, how did you get started in this career at all?
Yeah, I think it's, kind of built into that first answer, which is also part of what I'm really passionate about. For me personally, I had kind of hits, intuitive kind of ideas about the kinds of things that really lit me up. So along the way, I would, I took a psychology class in college where I felt like, wow, that is something that really is of interest to me. Generally, when my academic experience was totally uninteresting, had that same feeling when I walked into the art room in high school, and it was like, wow, like, who are these people? This feels more like me. But what happens, I think for most people happened to me is like the outside influence comes in, the societal kind of norms come in, the fears about leaning into what might look like it's not a path towards success or looking good or whatever the values that I had picked up along the way. So what I did was go get a job at a bank where I could put on a suit and tie and hopefully impress my then girlfriend's parents. I'll be married 20 years in September. So like, I guess it worked from that perspective.
Nailed
right?
it.
Right. But like, I hated my job.
Right.
I was like super miserable. And even then, that kind of like seeing people really unhappy in what they were doing, punching a pay clock, living for weekends and vacations, and like doing it for their entire lives made a really big impression on me, which I then was able to connect dots on later in life to create a company where that wasn't the case, not just for me, but the other people that I was working with. And then how could we enhance other people's lives? So it all kind of built towards and is still building. I mean, I think by no means have I actually landed where I'm fully living into, my essence. And what's, hopefully coming out more and more each day, each year. But I started in banking, all kidding aside, because I thought it looked good, and I was focused on things like bringing a business card to my 5-year high school reunion that looked like I had a job. I mean, that's, it's embarrassing to say, but that's where my head was at the time. A lot of programming, a lot of kind of, impressions that were made on me about what I was supposed to do with my life. And fortunately, I had a lot of really good influences that helped me nurture and support what it is I actually wanted to do with my life.
So I want to know more about that, but this is just so, like I was saying before, relatable to me. It's funny when you said art, because that was not my people. But I had a friend who was very artistically forward, and it was one of those things where it's like, we're all just trying to make a regular mug in art class, and he's got like a dragon on his, like, it's incredible, the most beautiful thing, and it was like he was born to do something, and he went on to be an architect, very successful in Chicago now. And to me, that was so discouraging at the time, because I was so happy for him, but I was thinking to myself, like, I don't feel I was like born to do anything. So by the time I'm in high school, when all your counselors are telling you, what are you going to do with your life and all these things, go to college, I just was like, oh, I'll just like go to law school. That sounds super good. Like, yeah, money and like legitimacy and stuff like that. That'd be good. And I ended up going to school for political science. And while I was in school, I started working in a law firm. And I found quickly, by taking action towards something I thought I was supposed to do, that was a terrible idea, and that these people were not living their best lives. And those influences that you need at that moment, when you at least come to the conclusion yourself that it's the wrong move, are even more important than ever. Where do you feel like you were able to find those people that could help redirect you? Because at least you had the realization at some point. A lot of people not only have it, but they ignore it and they stay put because they just don't know what to do.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would say, first of all, I believe that we're all artists, that we all are, creating in our own way. And part of the problem with the academic experience, especially, in the arts or in the kind of world of creativity, is that it's in a box, it's in a curriculum. So I was like you, I was in that art room. It spoke to me, but I was not creating art that, was according to the curriculum that looked good in my mind. I still actually, I paint. In fact, I was just telling my wife this morning, she said, I'll bring home a piece. I said, I don't like it. I don't know that I've found kind of in that medium, what, I at least think is good looking art, so to speak. But I know that I am a creator. And I believe we are all human beings are creators. It's that all the outside influence, all the outside noise that, has determined what's good, right? And what is acceptable or what people will pay for is what keeps people from creating. You can create in a lot of different ways. I mean, you're clearly an artist. You're clearly a creator in my eyes. What you do is, it takes a tremendous amount of creativity and risk and all the elements that go into, what I consider to be artistic. But it's maybe a different kind of, bent on it. But to answer your question, I actually had kind of a series of events that really, really opened my mind within a short period of time. I went to Summit Series, the first Summit at Sea, in 2009. Within months of that, I went to Landmark Forum, and I started working with a coach, a life coach. I thought he was a business coach. I didn't realize it was actually going to be a life coach. And those three
Wait,
things,
so you're saying you hired a business coach, but it ended up having more of a life coach effect, or you didn't know you were signing up for a life coach?
I did not know I was signing up for a life coach. I was in a business group, a peer group, a forum, that a guy in my group brought this coach into to do a half a day session with the group. And the entire group hated this guy. I loved him and kind of dragged him aside and said, I have to work with you. I don't really even know what you do. I didn't know what coaching was really. I mean, this is 10 years ago. I don't think it was quite what it is today. And what he ended up putting me through was really a real life evaluation about who I was, what was my identity, what was my worldview, what was the kind of core of who I am. And really, I didn't even know. Those were questions I really hadn't deeply grappled with. So before we got to business, there was a whole lot there.
Was this while you were in banking, or was this when you'd moved on?
No, this was in my last company. I was running another development management company and had been there for 11 years and was
that your first exposure to real estate then at that point?
It was my first real exposure. I studied real estate in college. I was an architecture major and then went into city planning and started to dabble from the banking side of things with real estate by banking real estate developers and kind of learning it from the finance side. But that last job was my first real entree into doing development on my own.
What do you think was the biggest game changer when you were working with that life coach at that point? What was the big realization that made you start shifting gears?
Well, I think all three of those events actually really pointed me towards the concept of really being in charge of my own life, that I actually could create my own life and make choices that were in alignment with the kinds of things that I wanted for myself. And, really seeing other people do that at Summit Series, really learning at Landmark Forum that, that I could author my own life. And then with the coach, then deciding, well, what was it that I wanted to author? What was the thing that I really wanted to commit to for the next, how many ever years that I would feel really good about, how my life was going.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the fears that you were addressing when you're thinking about this? Like, it's amazing to be able to write down, this would be my best life, and this is the kind of thing that I want, and this is the resonating theme, and this is what I want to see more of. But how did fear play a role in that?
Fear is a pretty significant role for me, and still is. I've learned to kind of navigate it, and the things that I'm afraid of today are a lot different than they used to be. But I grew up, in some ways early in my childhood. I had a lot of kind of fear in just my early childhood experiences. And so that's been fairly hardwired into my being. And I've had to really learn to navigate that. The funny thing is, as it pertains to jumping into the business that I'm in now, I used to be worried about things like setting up the phones and the copiers and like the logistical things, like that kind of stuff drove me like insanely, like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Signing on a bank loan that was, way more than I could ever pay back, or starting the business to begin with, or all the risk, all the kind of big ideas, that kind of stuff really wasn't scary for me at all. So it was more of like the how than the what that would keep me kind of in fear mode.
Okay, the first loan you took out was pretty big for Kaufman, right?
Yes.
I mean, how much was it?
I signed on for my first project was a $30 million project.
Okay, so like, just tell me about the brain space that you're in when you're having to go into a bank. Like, I mean, and we're talking about it's such a different world now. I don't think it's different for a $30 million loan, but in the world of banking now, sometimes you don't have to put a suit on and go to the bank and ask for money. You can do it in different ways. In your situation, it seems like that's probably what you were doing, right? You're like literally walking into an office where somebody's going to fully analyze you and say, based on who you are as a human, because you don't have anything else to back it up, and your experience and your skills and whatever you're proposing, we're going to let you take this amount of money out. Like, you have to be pretty prepared, both mentally and like in a lot of other ways, to walk into that situation.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the piece that I just really never really put a whole lot of energy into, and that was, maybe just, I believe, it's all kind of happening exactly how it was meant to be. I had one bank. I had one bank that said yes, and it happened to be the best bank loan I'll probably ever receive in my career. I had probably 10, 15 other banks that said no way, wouldn't meet with me, didn't return my call. So there was a lot of that, and then I got the one. And so, to me, when you kind of take that big of a swing right out of the gate, and I had done other smaller projects, but they weren't with Kaufman. I would buy a piece of real estate here and there, a duplex. I took kind of the traditional path that you hear about, where I literally bought a duplex and renovated it, and then went on to another one, and kind of got some confidence and a little bit of a track record to be able to take that big swing. But I went from buying duplexes to a $30 million project, so it was a huge jump. And for me to get the one bank that said yes, to me feels like it was really meant to be. Call it whatever you want. For me, it was very kind of spiritually aligned.
Yeah, and spiritually aligned, but you still had to work to get to that point, right? Like, or how do you not walk away discouraged after the first 5?
There's no question. I mean, it has been a learning experience, a building experience, to get to that point, to be able to get somebody to say yes. I definitely had to have a pro forma, a bank book. I mean, I had learned how to do these things. And, I could talk the talk. I could back it up. They had to buy in to the underlying real estate, especially then. The thing that's gotten a lot easier for us today is then I couldn't really talk about meditation and yoga and organic food and content, experiential value in building community. They didn't care. In fact, that was weird. That probably was
a red flag.
A red flag, right? So today it's great because I say those things and they go, oh, well,
you have vision.
Not only that, but like we're doing that here at the bank, so it's gotten a lot easier. I used to worry then about I wouldn't wear a suit and tie. I decided, look, I'm going to find the one bank that actually likes that I don't look like that. So those were the kinds of things that I was kind of leaning into, fearful of that, hell, I'm walking into the bank in jeans, let's see how this goes. But I had to shed it. It was part of my growth, and part of, the risk that I was taking was being fully expressed. And even then I wasn't really. I would hedge. I'd still wear like a button down, not a t-shirt or something, But
keep them guessing.
I was leaning into being fully expressed and just being okay with whatever outcome would come in being me.
So at this point, what's interesting to me is, and again, my audience isn't tremendously in Columbus. There's a few Columbus listeners here, but it's funny. There's quite a few developers in this city, and I think we're going through an amazing growth period right now. Clearly, our population is increasing, but in a lot of other ways, we are growing. Other than that, and so there's a lot of developers in town. I feel like there's a big excuse frequently used by pretty much anybody. They don't have to be a developer. They could be a blogger. They could say, I'm not going to start because the market's pretty oversaturated. Was that ever something that crossed your mind?
No, but I was also coming out of a time where the market was pretty bad. So, this was 2011 when I started my first project with Kaufman, and we were just starting to come out of the recession. 2009, I was starting to put projects on the drawing board. So I knew there was an opportunity. I do think that it is an excuse, and it's a real thing. I mean, you do have to be careful about when. Timing is really important. And so, you have to kind of ask yourself, I think only your own internal filter can determine, is this me just being afraid? Is that me not willing to take the risk? Is it a cop-out? Or is it, in fact, maybe not a great time to be doing these things?
At the time, do you think it was that you saw that there could be something positive on the horizon, so you were trying to get in when maybe a lot of people weren't thinking about doing what you're doing? Because coming out of a recession sounds like a risky time. Maybe another factor that, when you're asking for loans that they're thinking about, is this the best thing to do right now?
Yeah, I would like to say I was that thoughtful about it, but I really wasn't. And my coach has said to me, people make the kind of jump into something like I did, jumping into a new venture, leaving a cushy job, taking that kind of risk, an entrepreneurial kind of risk, starting something new. They do it for one of two reasons. Either they're drowning where they are, or they're absolutely on fire about what they're about to do. And I think I was both. I was pretty unhappy living the life of kind of just having a job, labor. And I was also really excited about the possibility that people weren't designing projects that had really good architecture, that were innovative, that were incorporating the things that I was passionate about, that they weren't building companies and communities where people were really excited about their lives and their work in their lives. And so that idea got me on fire, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So timing or not, I wasn't really thinking about it. I had to go. I found a piece of property. I designed a project. And as the chips kept kind of falling into place, I just went for it.
I love that. I think that's just really good advice across the board. I think I've definitely been in that situation where it was, I feel like I'm drowning, but I'm also fired up about something else. I think that's where the whole phraseology of find your passion comes into play, right? Because if you do feel like you're not in a good spot, then finding something that at least can get you excited to make a change or make improvements in your life is huge. As a resident of one of your communities, I think this is my 4th year living at, I've been in the same building the whole time, but at a Kaufman development. It's been quite evident how important philanthropy is as a part of your business model. Can you talk a little bit about why that is the case? Like, how did you start incorporating that as such a standout pillar of what Kaufman stands on?
Yeah, almost all of it, whether it be the philanthropic piece or the arts, all of the kind of what you see in the community, in the company, all comes from my own personal experience. And that's been a real blessing for me to be able to have certain experiences and then figure out how to build them into my work in a way that is improved. And I'm starting to realize that actually maybe that's not the thing to be doing perpetually, because I could solve a lot of problems, but is that really the problem that I'm most kind of here on this earth to solve? But to answer your question, in this case, I had an attempt at volunteering in the community. I wanted my kids when they were little to really understand the importance of giving back and doing that with your hands, with your time, not just giving money. And so I tried to get my family to volunteer at a shelter, and the amount of effort it took us to simply give of our time. We couldn't get anybody to call us back. Then there was a ton of paperwork. Then there was only certain hours, and those hours didn't coincide with their school schedules. Whatever it was like impossible to volunteer, to navigate the opportunities in our community. So I thought, well, that's got to be a problem everybody's having, especially since they're busy. A lot of people want to do good, but actually being able to navigate it sometimes feels harder than it should. So what if we would just make that available to people where they lived, where they could just walk out of their homes and have volunteer activities at their hands? Fortunately, I also learned a valuable lesson that the idea was right, but I didn't know how to do that. I wasn't really good at executing on that. And so that's where Bessa, Matt Goldstein, came into play. He came in my office one day and said, I have this idea. His idea was to be able to easily offer volunteer activities with the push of a button on a web portal. And I said, great, because I have that problem. So,
And you were trying to alleviate it in your own way, but you needed multiple attacks at that. That's so interesting, because I think about this all the time. There's actually been moments where I don't like to use the word busy, but that's just what my calendar looks like. It looks very busy. And whenever I get a moment and I'm thinking about all of the causes that matter to me, or the things that I want to work toward it. I have a beautiful community who, if I told them, this is really important to me, we should get behind this, I know they would listen. And I want to be very careful about when and how I do that. But simply reaching out to the organizations sometimes, no matter how big they are, sometimes can be really difficult. So just identifying that problem and making it easier for people, I think, is just so commendable. And I love that about where I live. I know that I'll get an email from a community manager from Kaufman that tells me, here's what's going on. It could just be sort of like a fun event where they're bringing us all together, or it could be, hey, we're volunteering at this if you want to sign up, or, I think we do some like holiday stuff like donations and things like that. The accessibility makes me feel so much more intentional as a resident. And I think that's such a millennial thing to say. Like, I feel so much purpose in where I live and what I'm doing, but it adds to that.
Yeah. Well, and cool. Like, if that's a millennial thing to say, great. I mean, what's wrong with that? And it is really multi-layered. I think that there is this element of simply, like, even if you just feel good about where you live, that you're living in a place that values that. And even if you don't attend any of the events, that to me is okay. I've always been of the belief that we want to meet people where they are, wherever they are. It's not so much about like attracting millennials. I would much rather get somebody that's me, the guy working at the bank who's in corporate America, who shows up to an event and just feels a little more connected to who they really are. Wherever you are in the spectrum and whatever you get out of it, if you go all in and you start volunteering and that lights you up and that changes your life, great. If you simply just meet somebody in the hallway that you end up having a pleasant conversation with around, the fact that there's volunteer activities or, a fitness class, whatever it is, that's great. It's all, to me, about moving the needle. How are we making people feel better just a little bit, hopefully in massively transformative ways over time, but every day, is fine. It's part of the process.
I love that. What do you look for in somebody that should or could work for you? What do you think they need to keep in mind as they're coming on, not just to do any job? I mean, I don't know at what hiring level you're still paying attention, but what values are you hoping that anyone that works for Kaufman is thinking about?
Yeah, that's been a learning experience for us too, because originally it was all about shared belief and shared values. I would sit in every interview and I would mine for that and ask questions that we probably shouldn't have asked, really understanding what was deep inside of them, what they believed in, and making sure it was aligned. Over time, I've learned that what we say is passion, skill, effort. And we really look for all three. So yeah, they have to share values. Yeah, we have to share beliefs. And what are their skills? Because they have to perform. There are certain tasks to the job they have to be able to perform at a high level. And then are they willing to put the effort in? and really hustle. We have values around hustling and living the philosophies and really leaning into what we stand for as a company. And so we really look for kind of that complete package.
I love that. Passion, skills, effort. Do you got it? Go get a job. Use those 3 to find it. Okay, now we got to get into the details. I want to hear what your morning is like. Specifically, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Well, I did not eat breakfast this morning.
Why?
Well, I recently was advised to make some changes in my diet, and the breakfast that I was used to consuming was not in the
scope
diet. So I asked my doctor, well, what would you recommend? And he recommended salad
for breakfast, or just like as your first meal, because that sounds awful.
Well, he's it's a largely kind of plant-based diet, and so that eliminated a lot of breakfast foods. So salad sounded awful to me too for breakfast. So I generally don't eat breakfast, or I have a green drink sometime in the morning, which I skipped today. So no breakfast this morning. What my morning routine is pretty consistent. I do value routine, and that's something I've had to learn because it's not really my personality. I'm really more kind of easygoing, just go with the flow. But I've learned just how important routine is to accomplishing what I want. So I generally wake up around 6 o'clock. I meditate every morning. That's a non-negotiable. And then I get into...
How long do you meditate for?
20 minutes. I practice TM.
Okay.
Been doing TM for...
Can you just say what that is? Just in case?
Transcendental meditation.
Thank you.
And I gave TM to myself as a gift when I graduated from college, and have been practicing it ever since. It's been one of the enormous game changers in my life. So that's first thing every day. Then I go into a quick journal exercise, which I've downloaded an app on my phone and do that, and then get into some sort of fitness workout.
Hold on. You're journaling on your phone?
I am.
Okay, so are you like literally typing with your thumbs to journal?
I am, yeah.
Oh my God, I hate typing with my thumbs on my phone. How do you do it? For a journal, my mind is moving too fast for that.
Yeah, I haven't actually, I'm not convinced that the app I'm using is forever, but it was awesome to get it into a habit. So I use a 5-minute journal app.
Oh, and love 5-minute journal. We talk about the 5-minute journal.
Yeah,
a lot.
so what I love
cool.
about it is it made it super easy for me to build in as a habit. And I've actually started to flirt with like, now what? And I do think there's some value to writing, but I don't think it matters that much. I think it matters that you're just doing it. And so, for me to express gratitude, to kind of write out intentions, for me to snap a picture of, what was great the day before, and just get my mind moving in that kind of thinking in that positive, grateful and intentional way has just been enormously helpful.
I love that you said that, first of all, because I love 5-minute journal. I stopped using the app just because for me, I had a disconnect between the recognizing and the fact that I was using an app, because I just separate my phone from my life so much. But the funny thing about that is when you said post a photo, I think I heard Oprah say something once about writing in a gratitude journal or something at night. And it reminded me of that because she was like, when you do that, you actually find yourself looking more often throughout the day for those grateful moments because you want to recognize them more, even if it's just for the sake of logging it. And I agree. I think that's such a good habit to be in. So on the note of fitness, what do you tend to lean toward the most? Like what kind of routine?
Yeah,
there?
I've had to play with that a bunch too. I was a marathon runner for a while, and then had this like Forrest Gump moment where I ran a marathon a couple years ago, and when I finished, I just literally like said, "Oh, I think I'm done running." And that was it. So that kind of left me.
I didn't know which way that was going to go. Like you were going to keep going or if you were going to stop.
No, I was like, I think I'm done running. So I did, but I didn't know what to do. So I did nothing for a while, which was a bad idea. And then I found a trainer that I work with that really is about kind of functional fitness, and we do a lot of crawling on the ground and core work and making sure that, when I'm, later in life and, I'm able to be stable, have balance and strong. So I do that a few times a week. Yoga is another thing that I've really started to build into my life. I've been off and on with it for years, but I have a pretty regular practice now, twice a week. And I've started to get back into running a bit just for cardio. So it's a different mindset. I now, kind of connect dots to health as opposed to what was probably a little bit more of a egoic thing. I say that like I loved running. I loved running marathons, but mostly what I loved about it was the training. And I loved the time that I had to be out in nature, to explore trails in Columbus that, you don't even know are there, and to really work a lot out mentally. The kind of exercise of it all was great, but it wasn't really good for my health. And so now I run for health, and I'll just do that, a few times a week, 20, 30 minutes.
I can't identify with that more. I have to say that the first time I've never done a marathon, but I've done 2 half marathons. The first time I did a half marathon, it was very much a moment in my life. It was probably a year before I started this sort of part of my career. I was just so lost and had no purpose. I really felt that way. I was doing the thing every day. I was going to work. I was reporting. I was doing what I had to do, but I didn't feel like I had something that I was working toward. So I agree with you completely on that training thing. I'm a really good rule follower. I love just give me the box and I'll color in it. And when you show me the training schedule for a half marathon, it's like, okay, this on this day, this on this day. Running's not that great for you. I would argue I have more wrinkles now because of those half marathons. But regardless of that, it was just like, okay, I got to that goal. And I don't think I'm speaking for everyone on that. I think there are runners who are like, this is just makes them feel fulfilled every day. But for me, it played a role for a specific period of time. So I can totally identify with that.
I think the other thing that I loved about it, I was real big on running marathons that had environments to them that were, really of high energy. So I ran Columbus because it was my hometown, and then New York and DC. And I love kind of the ecstatic experience. I think that it's really an interesting phenomenon to be kind of a part of a community and to have that rush. And there were those runners' highs that I would get that were really insightful, kind of meditative or almost like psychedelic experience where you were like tapping into another kind of universal energy that is hard to do unless you really push yourself. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but and I don't know if you've read the book Stealing Fire. It talks a lot about it. There's a lot of kind of data and literature coming out kind of in this space, but I think it's really a powerful thing to kind of open up your mind and body and push yourself in that kind of way.
I love that. Yeah, there's something about the adrenaline of it too, just like everybody and how that fires you up. So interesting. I'm going to put that book in the show notes. But on that note, are there any other books that were a big impact on you that maybe changed your mindset?
Yeah, I love the couple of books, Michael Singer's Untethered Soul and then Surrender Experiment are 2 books that I've actually been coming back to and rereading. So kind of front of mind, those would be kind of 2 really impactful books. Untethered Soul is an amazing book to just kind of learn to separate out your thoughts from the true kind of essence and I am that's inside of us all. And for me, thoughts are a blessing and a curse. I've really used my mind to kind of navigate myself to where I am. And I've also realized that that's not really who I am either. It doesn't have to be, at least, and just how much they run kind of constantly. And then Surrender Experiment was his 40-year experiment with saying yes to pretty much everything that came along. And so kind of seeing that practice in my life has also been phenomenally powerful. So yeah, both those books come to mind right away.
Awesome. Awesome recommendations. I'll put those in the show notes as well. Are there any other resources that you tend to keep up with on a regular basis? Anything specifically either to your industry or just in general that get you excited every day?
Yeah, I've kind of started to engage more and more in kind of mastermind network groups, mostly out of industry.
Mm-hmm.
I've really kind of focused my time more on mindset. So I discovered Strategic Coach Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach a few years ago when I was in this like email calendar hell where I was just unable to keep up with kind of the nonstop activity. Somebody told me to go to Coach thinking I was getting some sort of like tool set to manage my time, which I did get, but turned out to get, a whole lot more. There's a phenomenal set of tools, even the idea of tools, hacks, whatever you want to call them. And then the network of individuals that are thinking about life in that kind of way. I'm also involved with Joe Polish's Genius Network. So it's a bit of a different kind of group, but similar kind of approach to tools, mindset, collaboration, network. Totally changed my view on networking. I used to think that is like a way to like get a job or to get something, but now I've learned like how can I help somebody, and then how are they helping me, and really more about collaboration than networking. And then the other one that I'm active in is Peter Diamandis's Abundance 360 conference and community, and again, kind of learning a lot about, what's going on in the world and who's doing what and how we can work together.
Love that. Thank you for sharing all of those with us, because I think that's going to be super helpful for people who are trying to figure out where to get exposure to more positive, empowering influences. Before I ask you my last question, because I have to let you go, you're a busy man here in Columbus. Where can everybody follow you? Where can everybody keep up with you online and say thanks for being here with me?
Oh, sure. So I'm actually just launching my personal website. So Brett-Kaufman.com is now up and continuing to get built out. I'm doing kind of a lot more of coaching and speaking and writing. So you can find me on Medium, Twitter, bkaufman125 on Twitter. And Gravity is our big project that's just now opening here in Columbus. So gravityproject.com.
Yeah, when you guys see this building, you're going to lose your mind. It's stunning, and it just speaks for itself, but it's also in an area that I can't wait to see the future for this area, because it's one of those fun, like, neighboring areas of the downtown core. So it's just like they can have a lot of fun over there in Franklinton. So I'm excited to see what Gravity has as a role in that.
Yeah, that's that. I've kind of looked at Franklinton as my high school art room. When I first got introduced to the people that were there long before me, it felt, very similar. So this has been kind of my ultimate expression of our work to this date, and excited to see it come together and hopefully have it, be as impactful as we believe it can be.
I believe so. Okay, my last question for you is, what does it mean to you to go after the life that you want?
I think it means really being in creation. I believe that we as individuals have the power to create whatever it is that we want for ourselves and that we want to give to the world in this life. And so creating that every day, and where you are out of alignment, how you can get back in integrity and really continue to create a life that you want is one that you really have to choose thoughtfully and in being in action towards. And so, for me, it's about trying to be love and kindness and impactful and continuing to discover and forgive myself and others and continue to just, be more and more in that kind of essence of who I am. Discover that and be in it.
Thanks for being on, Brett.
Thank you. It's really awesome to be here with you, and I love what you're doing, and it's fun to be a part of it.
Thanks, Brett. All right, let's catch a few details from my chat with Brett. First of all, we are all creators. I love that he said that. Start thinking today, what is holding you back from trying something that speaks to you because of whatever societal norms might be telling you otherwise? How are you giving back in your daily life? Sure, you can write a check and give to a nonprofit organization, and that's super helpful as well. But are you taking the time to really see the issues and help yourself? What are you passionate about? What do you care about moving the needle on? How are you giving back? Passion, skill, effort. These are the three things that over time, Kaufman Development decided that they needed to focus on when hiring the right people. So when you think about presenting yourself at your next big opportunity, whether you own your business or you're just going to apply for a job, can you offer them passion, skill, and effort? Do you put the effort in? That last one is so overlooked. You can list all your skills on a resume. You can show a lot of passion in the interview. But when do you show the effort? It's in the everyday. And you do not want to be the person on the other end of firing fast. Really love this practical tip if you want to get started with journaling, but you're like, ugh, that sounds like a whole thing I got to do. Try the 5-minute journal. At first I was like, oh my gosh, he's journaling on his phone. But when I heard it was 5-minute journal, I was 100% on board. It's so much easier when you're thinking in one sentence at a time and not too much overwhelm. And that simple step of integrating gratitude and observance of gratitude every single day will massively increase your happiness over time. So check that out. There's an app. I also have a hard copy of it. You can see on my shop page. That's at amylandino.com/shop/mindset. What an awesome episode. I hope you will go and tweet or Instagram Brett and thank him for his time. Acknowledge him for his chat today with me. And hey, if you love more advice straight to your earbuds, I'd love to send you some. I've got some simple steps for living your best life every day. And that's my free audio training, the 7 essential details for going after the life that you want. You can easily receive this audiogram by subscribing to this podcast and taking a screenshot to show that you subscribed. Email that screenshot to hello@detailspodcast.com. That's hello@detailspodcast.com with audiogram please in the subject line so we can get that right over to you. For more details about joining my Shine Squad, where I'm spending a lot of my time talking to the people of this community, check out patreon.com/AMYTV, or you can always tweet me at Schmatastic if you have any questions about it. Thank you again to 99 Designs for sponsoring this episode of Detail Therapy. Check out their services and go get some stellar design on a bootstrapping budget by going to 99designs.com/AMYTV. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. If you would like to discover even more actionable details, head over to AMYTV by typing in your browser youtube.com/AMYTV, or you can search my name, Amy Landino, in the YouTube app. Remember to subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life that you want. Cheers.